I'm Angel Ellis, reporter at Mvskoke Media, filling in to be Gary Fife today, who is out on vacation. And joining me in the studio is Ann Townsend-Edwards, and she is a really important person for our tribe because she is a foster parent. Welcome, Ann. Thank you for joining me in the studio. And I just wanted to kind of start out. We have covered Indian child welfare. We've been covering McGirt. We've been talking about the really difficult situation that pretty much the tribe and all, Indian child welfare workers are in at this time with the big Supreme Court decision and the tribe making these massive preparations to try to take on this role of serving our citizens in this capacity through child welfare. We're finding that there's a lot of kids who are in child welfare systems, and there's a great need for foster families who are Indigenous families. And I think the last time we interviewed tribal officials were saying that there's something like over 800 kids, and we have about 14 foster families right now. And you're one of those foster parents. And I just wanted to learn a little bit about who you are and what was on your heart when you decided to do this.
Well, let me just say good morning to everyone. Hishe Stongo to Mvskoke Nation. I'll start traditionally. I am Ann Townsend-Edwards. I am of the Deer Clan, Ijuogi. My tribal town is the Mvskoke tribal town. I am the daughter of the late Sally and Albert Gouge, who are from Hannah, Oklahoma. I am the daughter of Elizabeth Townsend, who is the oldest of all 10 of the Gouge children. And I come from probably really thick traditional roots. My family, the Gouge family, has always instilled in me to have a servant heart, but to go beyond that and act upon that when I have it within my ability to help to do so. And so that's been instilled. My family has been well involved in the tribe over many years, from Opitliahola to Wilbur Gouge, who was speaker over the National Council for quite some time. So, and I have worked with children for almost 20 years. I work for our Historic and Cultural Preservation Office, and I really got into fostering just by, I wouldn't say it was accident, it was by incident. I had a couple of children who are actually my niece and nephew by marriage, and they needed a place to stay while their parents worked to get their lives together. And I was contacted by a state worker from Oklahoma City who said that they were in a sort of a shelter, orphanage, if you want to call it that. And I immediately, just because I have love for children, and anybody that knows me will tell you can always see me holding a baby or something somewhere, but I wasn't sure how this was going to pan out. The children were 9 and 14 at the time, and this was a few years back. And I didn't think to ask my son what he thought about having his cousins come live with us would be like. I just said yes. And, I had them for over a year.
I feel like that's a very Mvskoke thing to do, is you see your family in need and you take them and you do what you need to do.
Right. So. And that's something that we're taught. We help. Just help. And I took that on. And it was really emotional for me at first, because I'm single. I'm go from raising one child to have 3 children in the house. So it's a big change,
The minute they start outnumbering you in the household, something gets a little crazy.
But I felt like it was a good choice for my son, because he was an only child and he really needed company. He had friends in the neighborhood, but it's different when you have siblings living in the house with you. And so when when they came to live with us, it was, it was all hunky-dory at first, but then the children get used to you. And
yeah, then you have to make sure the bluff kind of carries on.
Yes. And so, but I mean, I had two really good children, and they were good in school. They wanted to go to school. They wanted to learn. They wanted to be involved. And I felt like it even made my son and I closer because we began to do family things together. We began to find TV shows that we could watch together in the living room. We would sit at the table every evening and put away our cell phones and just talk about what was the best thing that happened to us on any given day. And it turned into a real, family environment.
So it kind of like shifted the dynamic just between oh, this is mom and bio son, and sometimes you fall into your normal habits and maybe, but now having these extra children, we're really kind of shifting into more of a family kind of. That's interesting.
Yeah, and we did, and that's another thing that I felt was really good for my son was, my biological son, I should say, was because he just hadn't had that connection with a brother or sister, just being an only child. And so, I began to notice them playing games together, and they, looked forward to going outside and snowmen and, whatever else they could get into. And of course, where we live close to the football field. So they were always going over to the football field to kick the soccer ball around and, just out and doing things. And it made my heart very happy to see that connection take place. But in the background was the parents needing to get their lives together and having to do visits and, social workers coming in. And that was something that I had to explain to my son because at a certain point, now he was only 9 years old. He's 16 now, but he was only 9 years old when I first took these two on. And so one of the things that he was kind of jealous was that he didn't have a caseworker that came in to see him.
That's kind of an interesting perspective.
I never thought that something like that would hit him. And so he was just like, I couldn't understand what his attitude kind of was.
Who's checking on me here?
Right. That's exactly what happened. And so the caseworker, she came in and she quickly noticed that it was a real issue for him.
Yeah.
And so she said, I'll just be your caseworker. And so before she would sit down and visit with the other two, she would sit down and visit with him and just ask, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And, and have a conversation with him. And man, that's all it took, to make him feel equal,
Yeah.
And so little things like that can happen. So I always think that if you're going to consider being a foster parent, it's really important to talk to your family and to talk to your other children if you have children, because they have thoughts and feelings too. They're human just like we are. So
I think that's kind of something that a lot of parents would really start considering. How is this going to fit into the family that I have, and what, will those dynamics look like, and how will it, affect day-to-day life. So in your case, it was really positive for him to have that. And I bet, I'm just imagining how it worked with my kids. The ones that are closer in age tend to play together, and it gave me a little more free time and gave mom a little rest time on their shoulder from playing catch, because go play with the young one who can actually keep up with you, because I can't.
Right.
What was it like? You mentioned being a single person, because I think a lot of us, we hear these stories about the need, and many of us are kind of like, oh, I want to help in some way, and maybe this is the avenue, but I feel like a lot of people will talk themselves out of it based on their kind of individual situations, like, well, maybe I'm single, or maybe I have a small house, or maybe I've never just seen myself as the kind of person who would parent other children. What was that like for you to was there any of those thoughts or barriers?
Having come from a big family, I've been able to adjust in, different environments, and having a lot of cousins around to having nobody around. So for me, I really didn't have any animosity towards the change. Even as a single person, there was no question in my mind that I could stand up. I've always taken care of children. I've always helped with my nieces and nephews. I've always helped with friends' children, and so for the two to come in, being a single parent didn't scare me, because I had been a single parent, I guess, already for a few years. And it was just another choice to make for me. You know, I mean, I didn't have that fear. I can see being a single parent where somebody might have that fear and like, I can't do everything by myself, but you can. I mean, and there's a lot of things that go on with foster children that you think, I can't take them to their doctor's appointments. I can't miss any more work. I can't move forward with just my own life. I can't date anybody, or, you know, those are all things that you should never be worried about or concerned about, because with the state and with the tribal foster care, people will come in, and when you need help taking the children to the doctor's appointments because maybe you don't have enough leave time, they will come in and they will help take the children to the doctor appointments, or to see the parents on their visit, or to go
so it's not like you're abandoned out there with only yourself as the resource. They're setting you up to help you with those resources too. I know that's a big thing for some folks who are like, well, I have this job, and how do I take care of, you know, this child who may need aftercare after school or things like that? Can you kind of talk about the different resources that were available when you were as a foster parent?
Sure, as a foster parent. Now, with the two that I had prior, I didn't need childcare because they were public school age. So, and we lived close enough to the school that they could just walk home. But more recently, I had a 4-year-old child who needed childcare. And I got him when we were furloughed from the tribe because of COVID. And so, I had him about a full month, and I, frantically started searching for childcare because I knew we were going to be coming back to work soon. And the good thing about that was that foster children, their childcare is 100% taken care of. So nothing ever comes out of your pocket. You just have to find a childcare home, fill out the paperwork. With somebody that has the opening. And at first I couldn't find that. Because of COVID.
COVID had to make that really tough.
Right, it did. And so I had foster care workers from the state who stepped in and said, okay, we need you to be this child's foster parent, and so we're going to help you. And so they were really good about that. And there was a couple of times, like I contacted Robin Wind over at Children and Family Services, and I was like, Robin, I need to know who I talked to. And she quickly gave me the information of people that I needed to contact so they could get the ball rolling, and that was a big help. But you're not flying by the seat of your pants as a foster parent. You know, they don't just shove children in your home.
You're kind of more on your own with your own child than you would be as a foster parent.
Exactly. And so, it just was really a smooth transition to have the 4-year-old come in and I would say it might have been more of a rough patch on my part, because in my mind, I'm thinking, I blow things up pretty easily when it comes to, this child needs something and I have to do something, So, but I mean, it really was a smooth transition once I got him into childcare. I've had a good experience each time. Michelle Bender is who I spoke with over at the Children and Family Services program. When I have questions, I usually go to her just because she can easily answer them. And I've worked with Michelle before, so it's easy for me to communicate with her. Any questions that you have, any reservations you have, I mean, you don't have to start filling out the paperwork. They're happy to just visit with you and let you know the protocols and the processes that you have to go through. And sometimes it can be a lengthy process. But what you can expect when you are applying for to be a tribal foster home is you'll have to have the information packet to fill out, and that's quite a few pages. Another thing that they contacted me to do was a background check. And you do have to pass a background check, and I believe it's a NCIC background check, so it's a real thorough. But on top of that, you do have to take and go to, I did it down here at Deep Fork, but you can do it at the Tulsa County Sheriff's Department too, I believe. But they will set it up for you as you have your fingerprints taken. You're being put in a position to take care of somebody else's children who are in the custody of the state or the tribe. Robin Wind did my home assessment. And so I contacted her prior to her visit, and I was like, what do I need to be looking for? And she's like, we're looking for safety issues. Of course, if you're going to have small children, then you need to have the plug covers and the electrical outlets, and you need to make sure all the chemicals are put up safe and out of reach. And do you have cabinet locks? And if you have a swimming pool in your backyard, you have to have a certain cover on your doorknob where the children can't, just go out by themselves. So really safety issues, are your smoke detectors working? Do you have carbon monoxide detectors? Do you have a fire extinguisher? They're looking for those safety issues. Now, it's my understanding that you can have up to 5 children in custody at one time, but that's according to the space that you have. So I have a 3-bedroom home. So, depending on who can share a room and who can't share a room, I could probably take up to 2, maybe 3. Yeah. If 2 of them were a girl and I could put them in a room, and then one of them were a boy and then he could share a room with my son, right. So it would, it's just really looking at the space and safety issues. Of course, we want your home to be clean and, free of just like I said, the chemicals. You just can't have Windex sitting out on the table because, right. You just have to really be careful. And those are some things that I think that with our own children, we've in our own home environments, we've taught them don't touch things like this. Right. We've already taught them. And so we pretty much feel safe. But with other children in the home, you really have to take precaution and do that extra step to put things away. Like I said, the first 2 that I had were 9 and 14, and my son was 9 as well. So that was really good. You do get emotionally attached. You get used to them being there, doing things with them and for them. And so the first time when they left, it was a huge lump in my throat. I literally just, I didn't know what to do. The house was so quiet. I missed them. I missed talking to them. And
I bet your son missed them too.
Well, I know he did.
Yeah.
Because he was like, it's quiet. I don't have anything to do. I'm bored. I want to see my cousins, Yeah. And so, it wasn't that he was never going to get to see them again, but the living arrangement changed for both of us. And so it was just so quiet. And I choked up and I thought, I got to get us out of the house. And the first time I took my son to see the movie The Little Orphan Annie came out at this show. That was probably the worst movie to take him to see after the kids left because, I probably had said some of the things not intentionally trying to cause harm or anything, sometimes you just say things like, I wish you wouldn't do this because, but then some of those lines popped up in that movie, The Little Orphan Annie, and I was sitting there and the kids are gone and I can't talk to them right now. And I'm just like,
I can promise you're not Miss Hannigan. That's not even close to the case.
No, I really am not. But you just think about those things. You think about all the things that maybe you should have said or you could have done and you wanted to be better. Mm-hmm. But with the 4-year-old, now the first set I had for a year, but the 4-year-old I only had for 3 months, which was a surprise because when I initially got him, I was told that I'd probably have him for a long time. Mm-hmm. But these parents, I think it was a really a wake-up call for them to not have their child with them, and they just really got on track with the program.
That's really encouraging.
So how long you have the children really depends upon the parents in the situation. Are they abiding by the plan that has been put in place that they need to follow? Are they taking the classes? Are they making their visitation? And it goes according to what the judge rules as well. And so it was really a surprise because I had the 4-year-old for 3 months and I had planned on having him much longer. Mm-hmm. Now, this mother was like, you know what, you've become such an important part of his life. We want to keep him involved with you. And so they call me from time to time and text me. And I'm so happy about that because I get to see the after effects of him being able to be reunited with his parents and go back to his regular home life. And I don't know. It's just, this one was really different. I didn't have the lump in my throat because I am able to still have that connection.
Yeah.
So I know that there are parents out there who I have heard say, I just couldn't be a foster parent because it would kill me to have to give the children up. But I think that what you don't see is it goes a little bit deeper. You're not just helping the child, you're helping the whole family. And once you get to see the whole picture, it becomes a lot easier to...
I'm curious because I've heard a little bit about some of the terminologies that you'll hear with caseworkers. Mm-hmm. And the last time I interviewed someone about child welfare, they're saying, that parents shouldn't worry about like getting totally burned out and, that there's respite care and things like that where you get to take a break. And you can talk a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Actually, yes, I can. When it was 2 weeks after I've got the 4-year-old in my home, my son's father passed away. And we had to travel out of state to attend his funeral and be with family for the week. Now, they were Caddo, so some of their traditions are a little bit different. And we wanted to be there to take part in that for my son. And so I was really scared because I didn't want to have to take my 4-year-old into a situation like that.
Could be pretty intense for a little guy.
It could. And so, but it was coming down to the wire. They just couldn't find respite care. And they finally found a foster parent who was fostering a whole slew of boys in her home. And it was so funny. She said, yeah, I'll take him. And I said, I'm just going to be gone a week. I'll be back, to pick him up. When I dropped him off, he just went right in and just fit right in. When I picked him up, he was ready to come home, but he just had so much fun. He talked about that experience. Yeah. But the respite care is there. Like I'm a foster parent and I can have a regular child in my home who I'm actually in charge of being their foster. But if another foster family has an emergency like that, there are other foster families out there who will do a respite and take them in for a week. Even if it's just that your family needs to take a vacation and take a break of fostering and doing anything.
Yeah, like have a weekend to yourself or something.
Right. So, I mean, it's not really an interruption of your life. It just depends on, how you want to adjust your life to it,
Yeah. And when we interviewed Kimmy Hummingbird about, the needs of the Children and Family Services, they said that, like, if maybe you're not able or wanting to be a full-time foster parent, you could be just a respite care person who could be giving another parent a break for the weekend or something like that.
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for fostering in different types. Like you can just do emergency care. And that is usually like if they have to pick up somebody on the weekend and they need to find an emergency placement for them until Monday.
Yeah, safe place for the kids to go.
You can do that. You can, like she said, do the respite care where, if you need a break or vacation or you have a family in emergency, then you can do that, or you can be the full-time foster parent. So
awesome. So of all the, how many children have you fostered over this time, and how long have you been a foster parent?
After the first two, I took a long break. And I really took a long break because it took me a long time to figure out if I wanted to continue to do this or not. So I've only had the 3. But I will tell you that I teach a Creek language class online on Tuesday evenings. And sometimes we sit and talk after the class is over and we go offline. We sit and talk with our classmates, and one of the classmates had brought up to me that she had been a foster child, and that if it weren't for her foster experience, she didn't think she'd be where she was today. And she's an attorney now, but she is also a Creek citizen. And she said the thought of not having tribal foster homes where our children can go and live and be taught the culture is very scary to her, because the thought that those children might not come back to our tribe ever, because they're taken away from our culture. And so sometimes when you come back, you have a hard time fitting in because you don't know the language, or you don't know the culture, or you don't know the ceremonies. You haven't been around Creek people. That was really scary to me. But it was back probably November of last year when I started applying to be a tribal foster again, which I just had to renew everything because I still had my number. My initial goal was because I had watched a TV show where teenagers were fosters and they didn't have any place to go for the holidays. And some of them were aging out of the system, and then they had no place to call home. And I thought, I got to do something. I would take all of those teenagers getting ready to turn 18, and I would adopt every single one of them just to give them a place to call home for the holidays, if nothing else. Some of them are aging out and they have to go out into the world.
That's like a terrifying time. I remember being 18 and thinking I knew everything. I really did. Yes. But you quickly learn that you don't. And then there's these children going out into the world with way less resources and things to rely on than I had. That's really tough. tough spot to be in.
And I just thought about that, and that has been something that has been on my heart for quite many years now. But when I saw that show around the holidays, it just kind of relit that fire that was within me, that I want to do something. I want to be something for our people, and we all have it within our abilities to do something. And if I can only just do one at a time, if I can just adopt one at a time, I'm still helping. If I can take on two, if the tribe would give me a home that was big enough, I would take 20 of those.
You would run this mansion full of children and have the whole herd and cook massive breakfast every morning.
I'd be like the old lady that lived in a chute and had so many children, wouldn't know what to do. I would love to do that, but more importantly, I just have enough love in my heart to give people. I mean, our children especially deserve that chance, that opportunity to be part. And I just honestly feel like I know that probably a non-tribal home, the question of love for foster children is probably, it's non-existent. People who do this do have love for children. The thing about it is when you're a tribal home, you are already equipped because you've been raised with the culture. Mm-hmm. You know some of the language. You know how to interject and interact with the Native community.
It is really different because I have non-Native grandparents and I have Native grandparents, and I do remember when I was really young learning the distinction between the two. And so for kids to go off at any age and to be separated from that would be really strange coming back to. I have a hard time now, distinctly in my mind, understanding that other people don't have aunties and that your grandma isn't your boss. What are you talking about? So that's got to be totally wild for folks who are just navigating a completely different, cultural background than what we have. And so I don't know I could have.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm really serious about. I feel like not only is taking care of our children part of cultural preservation, but nobody can take care of our children like we can. There are just so many things that we can give them. And the one thing that a non-tribal home can't give a Creek child or a Native child, for us, is their clan family. That's really important that they're identified with the clan, because for years and years of, prehistoric times, we have lived by our clans and by our ceremonial grounds. And so that's something that a non-tribal home can never give our children. And I feel like it's important. And the reason that I feel like it's important is so many people that I've talked to, even doing the online class, I have students from all over the United States and even across the seas who have been disconnected from the tribe for so long that they've lost who their clan is. And so they feel like they're just out there hanging. And I don't want any of our children to ever feel that way.
Yeah, that's a very important element of everyday life, and people don't maybe understand that on the outside. I think we're getting close to wrapping up.